So, get this. There's a military manual from over 2,500 years ago that might just hold the keys to winning in business, in politics, even in your day-to-day life. We're talking about Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And the best part? Its ultimate secret is how to win without ever actually fighting.
Now you might think, a military manual, what's that got to do with me? Well, you'd be surprised. It wasn't just written for generals. Today, you've got politicians, CEOs, leaders in pretty much every field imaginable all poring over this thing. It's basically a masterclass in the physics, the politics, and especially the psychology of conflict.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Kinda paradoxical, right? The most famous book ever written on warfare is actually a guide on how to avoid war. Its whole philosophy is about achieving complete and total victory, but doing it before a single punch is thrown.
So how is that even possible? Well, we're going to break it all down by looking at 5 core ideas. First, the supreme art of winning before the battle begins. Then, we'll see why knowledge is your ultimate weapon. We'll uncover the secrets of the mysterious, unfathomable general. We'll dig into what makes a victorious leader. And finally, we'll explore why the best strategy is like water.
All right, let's jump right in with Sun Tzu's absolute highest ideal. The ultimate skill, the real pinnacle of strategy, is getting exactly what you want without a single clash. It's all about securing the win before the fight even has a chance to start.
Sun Tzu has this brilliant analogy to explain it. Imagine 3 doctors. The ordinary one treats the full-blown illness, surgeries, prescriptions, the works. The next best doctor is the one who spots the sickness when it's still tiny and nips it in the bud. But the true master, no one's even heard of him. Why? Because he deals with the illness before it even takes shape. It never even becomes a problem. That is the level of mastery Sun Tzu is talking about.
So a master strategist works just like that best doctor. They are always one step ahead. They're not waiting for armies to line up on the battlefield. No way. They're proactive. They're foiling plots, disrupting alliances, and outmaneuvering opponents long before a physical confrontation is even on the table. That right there is the supreme art of war. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how on earth do you win a battle that hasn't started? It sounds impossible, but for Sun Tzu, it all comes down to one thing: deep, comprehensive knowledge. He says before you even think about making a move, you have to do a serious assessment of the entire situation. He lays out 5 crucial things you have to analyze. First is the way. Do your people believe in the mission? Is everyone on the same page? Second, weather. And this isn't just about sunshine and rain. It's about timing. Is now the right moment? Third, terrain. Knowing the ground you're on, both literally and figuratively. Fourth, leadership. Are the commanders competent? And finally, discipline. Is your team a well-oiled machine or a chaotic mess?
And all this leads to his most famous saying: real invincibility comes from knowing everything. If you know yourself and your opponent inside and out, you're pretty much safe. If you only know yourself, it's a 50-50 shot. But if you know neither, you're just asking for trouble. Anything less than total knowledge is just a gamble.
Okay, so you know everything about your opponent. Fantastic. But what about them? How do you stop them from figuring you out? This is where Sun Tzu introduces the ideal general, someone who is mysterious, subtle, and ultimately completely unfathomable.
And the core of this mystery is deception. Sun Tzu says things like, though you are competent, appear to be incompetent. You hide your real strengths. You project an image of weakness. You basically lure your opponent into underestimating you, making them complacent. And that's when you create your opening.
The ultimate advantage is just being impossible to read. When your opponent can't figure out your strategy, they can't prepare for it. You become unpredictable. And in that mystery, you're the one in control. You're not just reacting anymore, you are directing their fate.
Now, a brilliant, mysterious plan is one thing, but you absolutely need a team that can pull it off. So let's talk about leadership. For Sun Tzu, the character of the general is everything. He says an army is just the reflection of its commander.
So what makes a great leader? Sun Tzu says it's a balance of 5 virtues. They need the intelligence to plan, the trustworthiness to inspire loyalty, the humaneness to care for their people, the courage to make tough calls, and the sternness to enforce discipline when it counts.
But just as important are the 5 dangers a leader has to avoid. Think of these as emotional traps that a smart enemy can exploit. Being reckless, being a coward, being impulsive and quick to anger, being too proud and easily insulted, or being too sentimental. Each one is a vulnerability waiting to be exposed.
So when you get that balanced leader, one with the virtues who avoids the dangers, you create unity. A force where every single person, from the top to the bottom, shares the same purpose. They move as one. And that unity? That's the ultimate source of an army's power.
And this brings us to our final concept. And honestly, it might be the most profound. We have this unified, knowledgeable, mysterious army. But how does it actually operate in the moment? Sun Tzu gives us this powerful metaphor. Strategy must be like water.
I mean, think about it. Water has no fixed shape, right? It just takes the form of whatever holds it. It flows around obstacles. It can wear away the hardest rock over time. A successful force has to be just as fluid. You don't stick to one rigid plan. You constantly adapt your tactics based on what your opponent is doing.
And that right there is Sun Tzu's definition of genius. It's not about having the perfect plan from the start. True genius is the ability to stay fluid, to change, to adapt perfectly to whatever the situation is. It's really the culmination of all the other principles we've talked about.
So in the end, the wisdom of the art of war isn't really about the battlefield. It's about mastering conflict in our own lives, in our careers, in negotiations, you name it. Conflict is pretty much unavoidable. So the real question this ancient book leaves us with is this: how will you use knowledge, deception, and adaptability to achieve your goals, not by crushing your opposition, but by winning before the battle ever begins?